Now, on a practicality level, this goes back to like, I think this is the point that you're really making. And correct me if I'm wrong. You made an argument earlier about the real world, right? Like, you mentioned it, right? There is a level of theory and the abstract, like everything that I'm saying, push back against it on a word level, on a going back and forth level. But then there also is a reality that you have to adhere to, right? Even if I'll give you a clear example on the other side, and I'll keep ping ponging this like back and forth so you understand that like my brain is everywhere in this, right? Like a woman can say, not all men, to herself, right? And say like, no, like I want to be the change that I see in the world. I'm not going to assume that men are going to be doing this and blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to give you some credit. I will only judge behavior that I see. Or behavior after you know, something like this. I'm not going to just go ahead and assume, right? But then another woman might come in a certain situation, say it's a bar, say it's a nightclub, say it's this and that, say it's whatever, blah, 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 and say, girl, you need to pump it. You need to pump your brakes a little bit because you don't know what this man's intentions are. And whenever you go into a practicality level, when you go into a practical situation, when you go into a reality situation, despite the fact that you're trying to push back against that societal norm or stereotype, there is an element of reality that you have to keep in mind whenever you are in these situations that can't be obliviously or naively
can be ignored.
Right? Because it can be detrimental, or it can be problematic, or consequences can be like unpleasant. Right. So I understand, but because I think this is what you were making. Like this is kind of the point you were making. Like all the society happens, and you were making it whenever you were saying like that's how you want to think about it. But the reality of it is that like this is how it exists, right? This is how people see you because society already has these preconceived notions. Both those things can be true at the same time. You can go out into the world and say, okay, I've got to navigate through these social situations carefully because I know that society has these kind of like lingering things, and I might get labeled any one of those things depending on my behavior. While at the same time acknowledging that those societal things should not be there. Does that make sense? So I think that ultimately is the duality of our stances. You're coming at it from this is how you practically navigate in the world because these societal things are there. And I'm coming at it from before you even get there. I'm not operating with the idea that those society things should even be there. Let's just take them out.
And I think this is like a very specific thing that men can do. I think, and the reason I say that is because as a woman, we have to be aware that a lot of that, like as much as I want to fight against a lot of that prejudice and a lot of this sort of societal like pressure and weight and all that stuff, it's not easy to do that when there's actual real life implications that are happening that will solely affect women in a lot of situations, right? So as a man, you have been given the luxury to be able to be like, no, fuck that. I'm not going to think that at all because that's not right? And that's awesome. And I could think the same thing. The reality of the matter is
I think you do have a nuanced approach. There's been times on this show that you've said like, men are allowed to do this. Men should feel like they're gay, right? So you do have a nuanced take on
the reality is like it's men like you that are going to be the ultimate like bringers of this change because unfortunately, again, going back to it, women, as much as loud as we want to be about this shit, there is a patriarchy that is pretty much just everywhere around the world, and at the moment, it's these old ass people that are heading it, and these old ass people don't think the way you do. And there's few and far between them. Every once in a while, they're sprinkled in there, right?
And it works vice versa.
And it works the same way.
It works vice versa. Like society or men in general are never gonna feel, are always gonna feel insecure if they have to limit themselves to a life of being a stay-at-home dad unless that high-powered woman says it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave you for somebody else. And shows improves by not leaving him for this other kind of guy, for this like stereotypical macho blah, blah,
dude,
blah. Like none of that, right? Like and to your point about like, it's going to be men like you. Well, it's also going to be women like them that are going to say, no, it's okay. Like if anything, I appreciate you for being able to
I think that's requiring the stance or knowledge that you even if a man is doing the whole stay-at-home dad thing, right? And a woman has to be the one that essentially reassures him in that situation.
Yeah.
He has to choose to be okay with doing that and still acknowledge the fact that the more people will judge the girl for doing that to him, than they will of him choosing to do that. As much as like support he might be getting from her, like
that is true.
More women get shamed for being stay-at-home moms than a man will get shamed for being a stay-at-home dad. On the contrary, people are going to be like, "Oh my God!"
I thought you meant the opposite. I thought you meant that more women were going to get shamed for being the CEO.
That too. So the
dad is going to get shamed for being a stay-at-home dad.
And it's going to be both for the same reason of the fact that there is this weird, unfortunate idea that women can't do a lot of things. That people just anything that a woman does is
but
like,
you're
damn,
right, though.
girl.
You're right. It's you're right to a large degree. It's just my idealism wanting to look at that woman from yesterday and her being very open and forward and I find all of those things very admirable in a world where
and this is the thing is like you mentioned this earlier where you were like you could be both at the same time of like wanting to advocate for the change but also being self-aware that is what's and my thing to me was the reason why I felt like maybe I am using the wrong word when I say desperate, but to me the reason why it felt desperate is because I don't feel like she was self-aware. It's like it doesn't seem like you're self-aware of this prejudice that I think the right word
I think the word you're looking for is childish and immature.
I suppose so. I just feel like if I'm trying to take out the whole like guy working there, I feel like that's more of what I'm thinking. I just again the whole work situation is just like
that just puts you in a very specific mind frame.
It puts me in a very specific mindset because I'm like, girl, you could have just hit on any other guy there because you're pretty enough to do it. Yeah. So like, why'd you do it with the bartender? Like, and I get it, bartender look good. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, if you really didn't want to look desperate, you could have just slipped him your number.
Okay, so now you answered my question.
You could have just slipped him your number. You could have been like, hey,
answered my question.
Let me get a shot, whatever, right? Can I get my receipt? Okay, yeah.
Now you answered my question.
Because you know that he liked you.
Yes. Now you answered my question.
And you didn't have to do a lot to know that he liked you.
We're done. Like that's what I was looking for. Is like that's the behavior of somebody that would not be desperate.
That's somebody
what I was looking for.
That's somebody who would have been self-aware and been like, look, if I do this, I'm gonna look desperate.
Got you.
So let me
now we're more on the same page because before I'm like, well,
it was
give me an example.
It was a non-subtlety. Like there was just non-subtle.
Like give me an example of behavior that wouldn't be desperate and. That's a good example.
One of them, yeah.
That would be a good example of like, okay, I'm into this dude. We'll see where this night goes. I'm gonna be here,
you can still put the ball in his court by doing that.
Yeah, 100%. So I got you now. We're on the same thing. But damn, we got all the. How long has it been? We got through all of that, and then we're just like on some
like,
shit,
hey,
bro. And we had a whole list. You were right. We didn't even get to the list. But now that we're talking about men, women dynamics, since that's what this episode is going to be, apparently.